All right.
Yes. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are watching us or listening to us from. This is your favorite program, FASA, coming your way from the Gambian Talents TV. I'm your host, your presenter, Mr Omar Joof. We are here in our studios in Seattle, Washington. The time is 2:43 p.m. and we apologize for the inconvenience. Yes, earlier we were having some technical issues as to why we could not bring you the program as we wanted to bring it to you. We are here with Mr. Omar Joof, who is the former president of the Gambian Students Union. Mr. Joof used to be a dynamic, strong person. Over 15 years ago, he contributed immensely and brought about a great change in the Gambia. How did he do that? Through the Gambian Students Union, which he was the leader of. We hear a lot about April 10th and 11th. Every year, it is being celebrated by Gambians around the world. We've seen victims of April 10th and 11th narrate their stories on this platform. Just last week, or 2 weeks ago, when the TRRC had their first town hall meeting. Yes, Gambian Talents covered it live, and some of those victims were actually over there, fighting for their rights, claiming for what rightfully belongs to them. They want justice, they want compensation, they want to be told what their stance is. Those that are sick want to get treatment, which they cannot get in the Gambia. Apparently, there is a reason for that April 10th and 11th. This story has been told. We've heard a few sides, but we haven't heard from the anchors, the pioneers, the people who initiated this demonstration, the body that actually put it together, the Gambian Students Union. This is a body that was responsible for the welfare of the entire Gambian students at the time, to the best of our knowledge. I was a student in the year 2000 attending St. Augustine's High School. I was right there at the I-22 in Banjul. And I remember vividly, like I said in the video I did earlier, when former CDS and head of the military, Babukar Jatta, of course, came out to the I-22. I was there, and we were speaking to him, the students. Everything that happened that morning, I can remember. I remember when the paramilitary came to our school, St. Augustine's High School, to actually manhandle our PE teacher, Mr. Sabali Usman. I remember fully my friend, Mohammed Ngalan, and others were arrested and detained at the police barracks in Banjul on Mosque Road, in the big hall. who were the people behind this demonstration. That led to the loss of lives, that led to the amputation and the handicap of some Gambians, that led to the Gambian paramilitary firing bullets at Gambian students. The man behind that whole thing with his executive is who we will be talking to today. Just today, a few hours ago, we saw Mr. Ibuwage, a video director from the Gambia, posting a video about a demonstration, peaceful demonstration, with banners that the residents of Pipeline took on. And nothing came out of it as far as them being engaged, them being manhandled and the like. Just yesterday, we saw a press release from the spokesperson of the Gambia government, Mr. Ibrahim Sankare. And the press release, of course, stated that they have come to terms, they have negotiated and came to terms with the Teachers for Change, which is, of course, a section of the Gambia teachers who were on a sit-down strike. Not long ago, we've heard about the doctors. Not long ago, we've heard about the social security. Not long ago, we've heard about the people that are working in the hotel industry. Not long ago, we've heard about the bakers who bake bread, the Borom Furi. There is a big U-turn in demonstration in the Gambia. The Gambia Students Union have played a big role. Mr. Joof, welcome to the FASA show with Pa Usman.
Thank you very much, Pa Usman. I feel honored and privileged to be asked to come to this very important forum once again to face Gambians and talk to Gambians, a country and people that I love very dearly, a country and people that I have never regretted being at the forefront for. And thank you very much for having me.
Mr. Joof, to start with, if you were to tell people who don't know you about Omar Joof, what will you tell them? Who is Omar Joof?
You know, we don't like talking about ourselves, but people ask me this so often that I have to try to do it. My name is Omar Joof. I come from Bakode. My father's name, Madi Joof. My mother's name, Jameson Jang. I was born in Bakode, but I grew up as a kid at Tombol Lameng, that place on the highway, at a place around Taborango. I used to be, like every other kid in the neighborhood, I used to be a stubborn kid there. At my grandfather Babu Sar's compound, and most people in Lameng during those days would remember Babu Sar's Mambatin, because that's how the people in Lameng knew me by. That was Mambatin is a name that was given to me by my late uncle Biram Jeng the day I was born. And then on the 7th day, the name Omar was given to me. Initially, nobody knew Omar until when I started school that people started calling me Omar. Yeah, I attended Sukuta Primary School. Then from Sukuta Primary School, I attended Travelin School. Then I went to Gambia High School where I did my GCE, O, and A levels. Then I worked for some time at the newsroom in Radio Gambia. Then I spent some time working at the former Gambia Commercial and Development Bank before I attempted to travel. It failed, and I returned back home and took up teaching at Bakote Primary School, a school that I alongside others, the leadership of the late ANDI MP for Sarakunda West, I contributed towards building, and at some point I was the secretary to the Tesital Committee. I taught there for 6 years, then went to the college and had my higher teacher certificate, then joined the teaching force. After 2 years, I opted to go back to what was then the University Extension Program of St. Mary's University in the Gambia, where actually April 10th, 11 found me as an active student.
So you were a student of the university extension program during April 10 and 11.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was in my third year at the
Okay.
university.
Third year at the university. How did you
Yeah.
join GAMSU?
Um, I have been in and out of GAMSU. I first joined GAMSU as vice president in 1993-94 when I was president Gambia College Students Union. Sorry, when I was president Gambia College, yeah, Gambia College Students Main Union.
Mm-hmm.
I joined GAMSU as vice president. So in in 1999, I was approached by students at the University Extension Program when the term of Fakuru Silla as president and others was about to end, and I was asked to uh, if I would like to run for president of GAMSU again. The reason is those students had their own issues with the way the union was being run, and they felt that there was need for the student union to become more non-partisan because they felt that the GAMSU at that point was being taken had been taken too close to the regime, and they wanted to create a distance. So that was what actually convinced me to take over because I found that interesting, and as a previous executive member of GAMSU, I had always, alongside my other friends like Dr. Mamoudou Sala and others, previously Sarif Sedi and the others, we had always talked to students about the need to maintain the non-partisan nature of the student movement in a multi-party political culture. So that was something that really, like, was very much close to my principles as a student activist, and it was what convinced me in 1999 to take up the leadership of GAMSU again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you were elected as the president, and who were the executive, your other executive members? Who were you in the
Yeah.
executive?
Yeah. There was the vice president was Alagi S. Gabo, who incidentally currently is the MP for Brikama North. He was the vice president. Zainabu J, a sister who was also attending the university, then was the uh, Secretary General. The treasurer was Alassane Cisse, who was then attending GTTI, and there was the information secretary was Alaji Binko Davo, who is also from Bukhara but was attending GTTI at the time. There was also the late Babukar Babukar
Ann,
and
Ann,
yes,
Babu,
who was then attending St.
Gambia
Peter's.
High School. Gambia High School.
Yeah,
He was my
yeah, but
batchmate.
yes, he was then attending St. Peter's Upper Basic School, and there was Mamour Jai also. There was Usman Ba. There was Babukar Jonga,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and there was a host of others. The number gets larger as
Mm-hmm.
you move from the central executive into general executive,
Mm-hmm.
bringing in all the regional coordinators and so on. And
Coordinators.
so, but we also had um, the co-opted members, those who were members of the leaderships of the other sub-unions, like the university extension programs
Mm-hmm.
union itself, which was then led by Aliou Dabo and the president of the Gambia College Students Union at the time, who was I think it was Mr. Khan then,
Mm-hmm.
Aliou Khan,
Yes,
and
Aluka.
yeah, and something interesting happened at the elections. I was the candidate that opposed me was Aliu Khan. Was it Alaji Khan? Or Not
Okay.
like Aliu Khan, but this is another guy but he's also uh, from the North Bank. So we had been in the union previously, and it was we were both of us were 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 we did not like the idea of contesting each other because we did not know he didn't know I was going to contest and I did not know he was going to contest. We had to contest, and after I defeated him, I made a motion to Congress to co-opt him into the executive, and he became a member of the executive that way. Uh, so it was a broadly based student with leadership at the time, and through my previous contacts with GAMSU, I had never seen anything like that before because members, you could trace them from university, the members, up to upper basic, all those segments, all those sectors of the education system were
I
represented
was
in it.
going to ask you, yes, based on what you said, I mean, including Babukar An, who was, I mean, a student of St. Peter's, that means GAMSU wasn't only the student body for tertiary institutions, but the entire Gambia students, right?
Exactly, yeah. It had always been like that. The chunk of GAMSU's membership had always been secondary school students. In fact, I remember very well that some people had always tried to use the secondary school students and the tertiary students from the tertiary institutions to try to create friction within the student movement. I very well remember that towards the I came in towards the termination of Mam Yasin Sar um, and Dr. Salah's tenure. But at that very moment, just before we came in, there was a big split between secondary school students and particularly students of the Gambia College, which had been aggravated by officials at the Ministry of Education because they had always wanted to split GAMSU. They had always wanted to keep it um, like to take
Integrated.
away, yes, disintegrate, like divide and rule, those strategies of divide and rule. So actually,
What was the reason for that? Were they threatened by GAMSU or something? What was the reason for that?
yeah, this silly argument came up that the president should come from Gambia College and not from any of the secondary schools. And the argument was that as a tertiary institution, Gambia College was higher than any of the secondary schools. So that was the argument. It was unnecessary, but it was just a ploy to divide them.
Mhm.
So when I came as president of um, Gambia College Students Union, I with my friends and colleagues, Philip Sidi, Patrick Kagbo, and the others, we dismissed the argument totally and said that was not necessary. In fact, we called Gambia College Students Union members and told them, now you don't have to insist that the president must come from the highest institution of learning in the country because very soon the Gambia is going to have a university. And if
Uh-huh.
that happens, then that university would be a higher institution of learning than the Gambia College, which means
Uh-huh.
you would disqualify yourself. And yeah, we were able to convince them, and we went in for a rapprochement with the secondary school students. That was how as president of Gambia College Students Union, I was co-opted into the GAMSU executive with my compatriot and great friend and comrade Teresidi from both of us from the Gambia College then.
Good. You took over in 99, right? If I hear you right.
Yeah, I took over GAMSU as president in
President.
1999. Yeah,
Okay, so what
yeah,
are some of the
absolutely.
achievements that you have accomplished for the students?
We we when we came in
Mm-hmm.
when we came in
Mm-hmm.
um we found GAMSU.
Mm-hmm.
We found GAMSU absolutely in the grips of the APRC dictatorship through the auspices of the July 22nd Youth Movement.
Okay.
And as I told you, our priority as we came in, personally as the president, my mandate from my local union, which is the University Extension Program Students Union, was to position GAMSU in such a way that it would become non-partisan and very much representative of Gambian students. And that really became our focus. And how did we do that? We made sure that we were never going to have meetings with politicians. We decided the practice of members of GAMSU going to Kandilai, we put a punishment on it so that at some point all those who went to Kandilai, instead of going to the Ministry of Education to meet up with officials, we penalized them all. And eventually, after having done that, then we try to sanitize the union. We try to sanitize the union. How did we sanitize the union? We put in quarantine certain individuals who were very influential in kind of manipulating elements of the GAMSU leadership. Those were specifically, may his soul rest in peace, late Baba Joof. We decided at executive level that no leader of GAMSU except me was to contact and talk to Baba Joof. So people did not understand that, you see, because, Gambians sometimes, what they say is what they think along those lines. They did not know the strategic thinking behind my relationship with the late Baba Joof. It was because GAMSU decided to put him in quarantine, and he was to contact only me in the student leadership. And that was based on our belief that I could politically deal with those individuals. That was how we took GAMSU gradually away from political influences, the political influences of the APRC government and the July 22nd youth movement. After that, they came after us, the APRC government. They came after us, especially the party. I remember at one point at their party headquarters, they told me, and my other friends were there, like the treasurer, Alassane Cisse. I very well remember he was there. They told me, if you work with us, we will give you everything you need. We will give you everything you want. Because they knew at that point we had more than 100,000 members. So
how did Baba Joof come? How did Baba Joof come into the picture?
Okay, that was part of the trappings. It was one of the it was something that we inherited from the previous leadership, which was very close to him. When we were,
I am asking this question, by the way, because at some point I became a member of NAPSA, which of course was directly under Baba Joof. So now it's making sense to me, because we've made this argument over and over, and it was denied all the way that NAPSA was not a political institution. So in other words, they were dealing with GAMSU, and after the last grip of GAMSU is when they came to actually form NAPSA to neutralize GAMSU.
They were given, before we came on the scene, they even gave them transport. I remember I inherited that transport, but the problem was the moment an APRC vehicle started standing outside my house at Bakode, APRC supporters in my community were offended, because they knew right away. They knew that I had never been part of their party. So I think they reported the matter to their party leadership, and then the vehicle was taken away from me. It didn't last long with me because everybody knew my politics.
Okay. Let's fast forward.
Let me clarify that point. That's why it was necessary for us to for us to sanitize the union, and then to maintain that sanity, we put Baba Job and some other individuals. One of them later became a minister in the dictatorship, in fact. We put them under quarantine so that they could never influence this GAMSU. Yeah, in fact, unfortunately, we put my own predecessor, Fakurusilla, even Fakurusilla, he now knows about this because I have discussed this in public with him. We put him under in quarantine so that he would not, because we thought he was too close to the dictatorship. We put him under quarantine so that he would not be able to influence the executive.
Nice.
That was what we did. That was what we did. That was what we did politically.
Okay.
But we had some other programs. We had some other projects that we wanted to implement, which the world never came to know about. But I'll tell you this: Yaya Jammeh's project for girls' education was based on our project. It was a project that we conceptualized and took to the Ministry of Education and sold it to them, because once we moved away from the politicians, we started a monthly meeting with the Minister of Education and started focusing directly on student issues, because we believe that we had to discuss those issues with the professionals. We did not, we were not interested in being, being polluted again by the politics of the dictatorship. But we were comfortable with dealing with the minister, the Secretary of State for Education, and the.
Who was it at the time? Was it Satang Jau or Tresndong Jata?
No, it was my sister and Tresndong Jata, which is the most. It's very interesting because that leadership and Tresndong Jata developed a very dynamic working relationship.
Okay.
We hit the ground running, and we started meeting her every month. Now,
go ahead.
Once that started, we started building confidence. So we started bringing them the student issues and what we wanted to do. It was at that point that we explained to them. I showed them, a project proposal we had for girls' education, for sponsorship of girls' education at the upper cycles of education. We had an acronym for it. But I think they stole it from us and gave it to Ajame, and he made it a political thing. But that is our idea. That is our concept. That is our project. They stole it from us. And that is the reason that I can give you evidence why that, because we became so close with the minister that I was put on a ministerial delegation to France to attend the last meeting of Predico Mayo, that very flamboyant leader of UNESCO. That at that point we were working very well. We were coming to them with issues. We were coming to them with ideas. And when they stole our project, they invited me to become a director of the Jammeh Foundation for Peace. I did not even respond to them.
Oh, okay. Okay, they were trying to get you so that you will be managing that project probably. Okay. I want to get to April 10th and 11th.
Okay, all right.
Very important because we are running against time. I wish we started earlier, but we were behind for almost 1 hour. April 10th and 11th. How did it come about?
Now, I very well remember it was around this time. It was in April. You know, April 10th. Around that period is about some incidents that happened in Soweto, and African students generally are in celebratory mood. Sometimes we heighten activities and things like that. We were working on. We had already we had already convinced the Department of State for Education to collect $1 from every Gambian student to put in place the GAMSU Trust Fund. Because that is another project we were doing. We were trying to make the union solvent because the Department of State for Education had on several occasions tried to use the yearly stipend as a way of, putting pressure on GAMSU. Like, well, we'll provide money for you. You have to do what we want you to do. And there was a time it brought about an incident which others call the State House incident, where the four of us had to do a demonstration. That's a completely different issue. But we were trying to raise money for the GAMSU Trust Fund, and we were allowed by the Ministry of Education to collect $1 fee from every Gambian student, $1 fee. So we were on a sensitization mission. I went into the provinces with some other members of the executive, spreading that news and trying to put in place the modalities for the not only raising the fund but putting it together and so on and so forth. But I came, and that coincided with the penultimate weekend, coincided with the inter-school sports competition at the Independence Stadium in Bakau. Mm-hmm. So I did not go to that, but when I was in the provinces, when I came back on Sunday, now a friend of mine who was also a member of the executive and who was made to disappear allegedly by the dictatorship, brother Molo Jallo, came to my house and said that a guy was raped at the Independence Stadium. Now, that was on the 11th of March. But previously, on the 8th of March, that incident had taken place in Brikama. The incident in Brikama where Ibrahim Barry was tortured and he died the following day, allegedly based on the torture that was administered to him by members of the fire and ambulance service unit of the police department in Brikama, and which included carrying 50 bags of cement from one point to another. And then at the end of all that he was made to drink a concoction of cement and water. Of course, within 24 hours, he passed away. So we had these two issues.
So it was Ibrahim Abari's torture from Birkama and the girl that was raped at the stadium. Do you remember the girl's name?
Yeah, the girl was from Birkama, but her name is Bintamani. Of course, I remember the name because I had to take the girl to my house when she was discharged from hospital because she did not have anybody in the neighborhood. I said, well, I'll take her home. So I took her home. My mom was there, my wife, and they took good care of her.
So she was raped. She was raped at the stadium and was admitted to the hospital. Which hospital?
The Royal Victoria Hospital.
RVTH. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How long did she stay at the hospital?
She was admitted on Friday and discharged on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She was discharged on Monday. Mm-hmm. She was discharged on Monday. I took her to my house, and but before going to my house that Monday, we took her to the Bakau police station because that's the jurisdiction within which her rape allegedly took place. We took her to the Bakau police station so as to open a case file for the case. And then from Bakau that Monday, I took her to my house in Bakau, to my family house. Then on Tuesday morning, she stayed there with one of the female teachers. Tuesday morning, we came to Bakau police station again. Myself, that teacher, another PE teacher, Mr. Ba, who used to be a colleague of mine at Gambia College, and Mr. Mendy, the principal of Brikama Upper Basic School. We went back to Bakau Police Station and we we were certain that a case file was open for that rape case. A file was open for it, and 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 then something happened. Something happened there, which kind of set alarm bells ringing in my head. After the file had been prepared and brought to the station officer with whom we were sitting, four of us were sitting in his office. Then he made a call after the file was given to him. He made a call, called one of his superiors, and informed them that the file had been prepared and was ready to set things moving. We had him. You know, those old phones, if someone was speaking on the phone and you were listening carefully, you could hear what the other person was saying at the other end. All my years, I know one thing, my ears are very good. Maybe my side may not be good. I took that from my father, but I can assure you my ears never failed me. I had someone, a superior officer at the other end, telling the station officer to take it cool on the. I know the station officer's name, but I'm not going to mention it because I'm thinking of going to the Gambia eventually, and we will have to go to the TRRC. But I had the station officer was told to take it easy with that case. Take it easy with that case. Okay. So from that point, to me, it was like extending solidarity to their kind, because the persons who were alleged to have raped this girl, the 13-year-old girl, can you imagine, was one of them. So we went away. We went away like that. And then we started working on the case. Now, we had, as I told you, we had two flashpoints. So we divided ourselves into two groups. That was a very good student leadership, I can assure you. The vice president was resident in Brikama. So he led our contacts and our activities in Brikama and around Brikama. He led that in Brikama. And I led the activities around Serakunda and Banjul, going to the police headquarters and so on and so forth. I led those activities. So eventually what happens is dialogue started because we initiated dialogue. We went to the Ministry of Education and kept in touch with them about it. And we kept things moving. Then we got up to, we had already, the public had been notified because we organized a press conference at the Panicking East Youth Center and invited all the press and told them what was going on, gave them an update on everything. All right. So it was, all these things started. Ibrahim Bari passed away on the 8th of March. All right. This girl was raped on the 11th of March. So we kept moving. We became very active throughout. We kept the contacts going on. We kept in touch with the Ministry of Education. And eventually, through my direct contacts with Baba Joof, we were able to inform Yaya Jammeh directly. So he knew about it. Okay. And then eventually we wrote a letter. And that was what led to a meeting between us and the top brass of the police department. Because what happened is that when I told Baba Joof that this thing is getting serious, he told Yaya Jammeh. And Yaya Jammeh told him to tell me to go to the Ministry of Interior and discuss the matter with Usman Baji, the then Secretary of State for the Interior. I went to Usman's office and we discussed this thing. All right. But nothing much came out of that discussion. Eventually, we were invited to a meeting with the top brass of the police department, including the Inspector General of Police.
Okay.
Now,
who was Inspector General at the time?
I think it was Rex King.
Okay.
I am getting old and I'm beginning to
Was it
forget
not
this whole thing.
Ibunjai police? It wasn't
No, it
Ibunjai?
was not It was not Ibunjai. Uncle Ibunjai became police officer later. It was Rexton. It was Rexton.
Okay.
Yes, it was Rexton. Yeah, it was Rexton. And then the fire and ambulance um, department was then headed by Bakurin.
Mm-hmm.
Bakurin. Yeah, because I know those people. So um, and I very well remember that the serious crimes unit was led by Atin Baji.
Mm-hmm.
I very well remember that Mr. Jassy, Officer Jassy, was a commissioner of police then because he was also at the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I very well remember that Tankum Baji was the deputy IGP. Yes, so the day we went, it happened this way. One of the IJMS cousins was a colleague at the university.
Mm-hmm.
So a student passed away at the university, and we went to the funeral. This was our brother Lawrence Gomez of blessed memory. We went to Lawrence's funeral, and I was told there by Benjamin Jammeh then that the IGP, because then was working at the IGP's office.
Mm-hmm.
Ben told me that the IGP would like to have a meeting with us on Monday. This was during the weekend. So we went. In fact, I left my colleagues at that funeral and went home and started making contacts with the other members of the student leadership. And we eventually went to the police headquarters that Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so very unfortunate that our meeting was not productive at all. At some point, I had to intervene to stop a quarrel between some of my colleagues and some of the police officers. It was so chaotic, and at some point, the Inspector General of Police decided he was going to leave the meeting and go to the airport because the president was coming into the country from overseas. That also ended that way. That was the way that meeting also ended. It did not answer any questions. It did not resolve any of the issues, and it was just like that. But at the end of everything, Edin Baji and Jasa came to me, and they suggested that I come back to the police department the following day. I accepted the invitation. Then I came with some. The following day I went there with some other members of the student leadership. If I can remember right, specifically, they were the those with me were the assistant secretary general and the information secretary, David Daniels and Alajim Binko Kamara. Yeah, those were the guys with me. When we went there, we went to President Baji's office. He was now the intermediary between us and the Inspector General of Police. All right. Instead of we thought we were going to continue discussions with the Inspector General of Police, but instead he sent his deputy, Sankum Baji, to us to ask what we wanted. Well, I said, well, we have a letter of demands. I gave them the letter of demands, and he took it back to the IGP. But the IGP did not give us audience. Instead, he sent Roger Bakurin to come and have some discussions with us. But when Roger came into the office, it was like he came there to bully us, to threaten us, to scare the hell out of us, because he stood in front of us and put his hands across, showing off his muscles. You see, the Gambia is such a small country. We know each other. Sometimes some people don't even know that we know each other. I had known Roger Bakrin since he was a student at St. Augustine's High School with some of my friends. So I literally got up from my seat. I massaged his fat ego until he relaxed, and then we continued having a discussion with him. Now, we wanted at that point, because Brikama at that point had become a very significant flashpoint. We wanted the officers who were involved in torturing Ibrahima, who members of the community, including Ibrahima's family, had already known, to be moved, to be relocated, to be moved out of Brikama. Our demands were very sensible, because they were all geared towards maintaining the peace in Brikama while we continue with other negotiations. So he said, in principle, he thought the ideas were good. He said they were in fact trying to do some of those things, but he would not give us word that they were accepting our demands. Hello, are you with me? Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Now it was like those were all our demands were all like geared towards keeping the peace and expediting the process for justice in regard of Ibrahima and the rape girl. But they were not prepared to accept any of the demands, because I think because of their mentality that they should not give in to students. Even though they accepted that our demands were very sensible, they were not prepared to say, okay, so we left the police department that day also without any of the issues having been resolved, without any step forward. It was still like we were still like staying at the same point, just at the same point. All right. So we went away that day too, and we started mobilizing ourselves and making contacts with students. And generally, what every student leader what is told does is, when there is an issue like that, what you do is you keep contacts with your membership and try to get a feedback of the feelings within your community, within the people you represent, because you want to make sure that whatever action you take, wherever you head to, is generally accepted by your membership. You don't want a disconnect between you and your membership. And so we started making those contacts. We extended GAMSU's executive into an emergency executive committee by co-opting other students around, the greater Bandul area, and keep the contacts and moving on and moving forward. I think I can stop there so that you can ask other questions. So that's where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you had the meeting with the police and nothing came out of it, and then the emergency executive was set up. So what was the emergency executive's mandate?
Well, the emergency executive was created exclusively to deal with these two issues: the rape case and the alleged murder case, exclusively. So we would meet. Sometimes we would meet at GDTI. Sometimes we would meet at Gambia College, which ends we had co-opted members. And sometimes we have had meetings even at the grounds of the Independence Stadium. Just like we just move around wherever students were, whichever place was more convenient at a particular time, we would meet there and try to deal with the immediate issues, and then plan for what to do in the next couple of days. That was all.
Okay, go ahead. I was gonna ask if you had any NIA attached to the student body and the like. Was there any NIA attached to you guys at the time? I mean, because they suspected that you were gonna do something. Somebody that was spying on you guys.
I remember. I remember. I remember there was an NIA at State House whom I knew this guy during his student days through GAMSU, not GAMSU but FECAMSU, because we were responsible. We were the ones who created FECAMSU. FECAMSU is the Federation of Islamic Students Union. We created that with Brother Omar Joof of the Teachers Union and others. Because how did we do that? We brought together what were then called FASAs. These were Islamic Solidarity Student Unions throughout the Gambia. We brought them together and formed the GAMSU. There was this Ibrahim Jaju, who was then an officer at State House, really started to follow us. And I remember at one of our meetings, he came to one of our meetings at the GDDI, and I asked him to leave the meeting. I literally asked him to go somewhere else. Yes, but we were not aware of being being followed every day like that on daily basis like that. I was not aware of that. I was aware of Ibrahim Ado trying to come to our meetings, and when he came to the meeting at DTG, I asked him to leave. Yeah, I can remember that.
Oh, so you knew, okay, they didn't have somebody permanently attached to you guys that was monitoring and following you, right?
No, we were not aware of that. At that point, no, we were not. We were not. Because, as I told you, we had already sanitized the union. Most people don't know about this, and we had put in quarantine all the people that could affect or could manipulate or could look into the activities of this student movement. We had kept everybody at bay. So, and which we were successful in doing at that point.
Okay.
I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why they said we were operating in clandestine, when in reality we were opening in broad daylight. We just kept them away from our activities. Because, we were simple. I see, Pa. What most Gambians don't understand is that at that point in time, when GAMSU's executive sits together, we were as good as many board of directors. Don't look at the age of these youths. Most of the students in GAMSU's executive at that time were good students in school then. They were not just like any ordinary student. Most of the students just go and find out about all of us. We were all doing well in school.
Oh, okay. So you had the best students from the different schools as the executive members, right?
Exactly. It was like that. These were not bad political students. They were not bad. They were good students. They were all good students. They were smart students.
So moving on to the meeting. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Moving on to the meetings. What happened after that meeting?
After the meeting, then everything broke down. Okay, because then we as I told you, we kept on mobilizing and contacting our members, and then we were then moving towards the end of March by then, and even then it was around Ramadan also, and so on and so forth, and people had to go away, and I very well remember telling them telling the police officers that now this is a good opportunity. Now these students are all going away for the it was either Ramadan or Tabaski. I can't remember exactly which one it was. I said to them, students are all leaving campuses and are going away. So this is an opportunity for us to work together and resolve these issues before they come back to campuses. Because once they come back to campuses, then the pressures would start again.
Okay, what were your demands? What did you want them to do, sir? What were your demands? What did you want them to do?
I have already explained one, which was to relocate the police officers at Brikama. The other thing was to carry out an investigation and arrest those who were responsible for both the rape and torture and take them before the due process of the law. We were not asking for anything beyond that. That's all we were asking for. We just wanted justice to be done and to be seen done. That's basically all we were asking.
Okay. So when you told them that it is Ramadan or the students are out of campus, let's resolve this before they come back, what was their reaction?
They accepted that. But after some time, this is what happened, which escalated the tension. After the students came back, one day they just put a news on Radio Gambia that the corona had produced a report on the demise of Ibrahim Bari, and it had been concluded that he died of natural cause. And then that immediately sparked off a student demonstration in Brikama.
Really? So they could say that Ibrahim died of a natural death? So they determined that he died of a natural death?
Yeah, that he died of natural causes. But this is the interesting thing. At the time, our information was when they were bringing out that news, our information was that the corona responsible for that postmortem had left the country, had traveled somewhere to the West Coast and had not come back. So how did they reach that conclusion? It left so many questions unanswered. How did they? And everybody knew what had. This is somebody who was physically tortured, and people knew that. People were there. He was physically tortured, and he was made to drink a concoction of cement.
If I may ask, what was Ibrahim's crime, if I may ask?
Ibrahim had a problem with one of the teachers. He had a problem with one of the teachers, and he was then going to become a senior secondary school. And this school was just across the street from the fire and ambulance service department offices. So the teacher, instead of dealing with the case in the school, reported Ibrahim to the officer, which is unheard of in the first place. Nobody does that. In fact, traditionally, school grounds are sacred grounds to police officers. They don't step on school grounds unless they are asked specifically to do so. Police officers are not allowed on school grounds, except or maybe in North America after with all these crazy things going on. But traditionally, police officers are not allowed on school grounds. School grounds are sacred grounds for students.
Interesting. So after the meeting, what transpired?
After the meeting, after that, that demonstration in Brikama, everything, the tension grew up again. And when we started meetings again, we had to go to Brikama. There had to be a meeting at at the Gambia College, which was again led by the Vice President of GAMSU at the time, and then we continued making contacts with them. We continued making contacts with the Ministry of Education, but actually on the real issues, nothing was moving on. Nothing was being done. Now, except that the girl after the prayers, the feast, the girl was brought back, and then there was an identity, what they call identity parade, an attempt to identify whoever was responsible for her raid at police headquarters in Banjul. But, and this is one of the problems, we had told them at the time that if this is a traumatized girl, we feel that this identity parade should take place immediately after the incident. But they allowed weeks to lapse before calling for the identity parade. And after the identity parade, well, they came to us and said, well, the girl cannot identify whoever was responsible for her raid. So we said, well, anything could have happened. Anything could have happened. We don't know whether the person was brought to the parade or not. But we know this, that in the toolbox of the police, there are still some tools that they can use, investigative tools that they can use to proceed their investigations on this case. Because the identification parade has failed, that is no reason why the investigations would not proceed. Yeah, but that was like their position. Once the identification parade could not bring out, could not identify the culprit, for them it was like end of the road. And we did make it clear to the public that in a press statement that could not have been the end of the road, that they can still continue they could still use some other means of investigation.
Oh, okay. So at the end of the day, the girl could not identify the officer.
No.
And they said that is the end of it because the girl couldn't identify. Now, what was the next step that GAMSU took?
We naturally went back to, like our usual meetings, and then eventually we on Friday the 7th, was it? Yeah. No, on Sunday the 9th of April, we met at we had our final meeting, and then at 1 o'clock and in the day, noontime, lunch hour, it was unanimously decided to go on a peaceful demonstration. Because
did you guys apply for a permit?
Now, that's a very interesting question. At the time, yes, we did ask the Secretary General was asked by the executive to go and to look for a permit. But at that point in time, she was asked to do that before that penultimate meeting, before that final meeting. But she did not come to that meeting.
So you didn't know if she had a permit or not?
Oh no, it was. She did tell me at home that she did come to my house and tell me that they could not get the permit. Okay. She could not. She could not get the permit. But we met and we discussed all that as an executive, and we decided to go on the peaceful demonstration.
Okay.
Without the
peaceful demonstration. How did you mobilize the students? Because we just woke up. I was a student at St. Augustine's. I can fully remember everything. We just woke up and heard there was a demonstration. School buses were not coming. Some of the buses were hijacked. Some of the students stopped at GTTI. So how were you able to communicate this?
No, we just knew that we knew as students who had always traveled on the school bus service. We knew, the routine operations of the school bus service, and we capitalized on that. And then we staged the demonstration at a strategic location where most of the school buses would pass through, and we staged the demonstration right there
And where was
outside GTT, outside GTTI.
Outside GTTI, okay. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did you guys stage it? What did you do? I mean, can you walk us through the process?
Now we simply, when the bosses came, we simply told the students, because they had all heard about it, that there was something in the cooking. Most of them knew about it. We just told them, you remember the rape and the rape and the murder case. Today is the day. Come down for a peaceful demonstration. You know, most of them got off the buses. There were still some who decided not to get off the buses, but the majority got off the buses.
So
I
you
very
and
well
your
remember.
Go
I
ahead.
remember it was also coincided with examination, the start of exams in most schools in Banjul. So most students were really traveling to school on that day, which also worked in our favor. Yeah.
So you guys, I mean, stood there, you came out, and the students came. Around what time was this?
I was at Digital I left my house at 4 o'clock and
4 a.m.
I left my house at 4 a.m. By 5 o'clock we were at GTTI, but because I very well remember that's where I did my my morning prayers for that early morning prayers for that day. I was there with the Secretary General by 6 o'clock, 5:30, 5:45. We were there, myself and the Secretary General. By 6, our other comrades started coming. Yeah. So by the time the first bus actually
walk us through the process, people who don't know about this, we hear about April 10 and 11. Basically, it has been politicized over the years, and a lot of people have been talking about it. I have never heard you talk about it. I mean, since then. So walk us through the process. You came to GTTI. Other comrades came, and then what?
Now it's like this. When we met at our final meeting, we had two things to do. We decided to have a peaceful demonstration. We also had an offer to meet the vice president.
Okay.
So we, on the same day, we decided that we were going to have the peaceful demonstration. And when the delegation goes to meet the vice president, the students were to wait for the delegation at GTTI. They were not to go home until the delegation returns from Banjul. Basically, this is what we decided. We decided who was to talk to the police officers when they arrived on the scene. Okay, we decided the Vice President Alaji S. Dabo was to talk to the police officers, and we decided that I was to lead the demonstration.
Okay.
And we decided on our banners. We decided that every banner we had to call for justice. There was nothing else to be put on the banners. The banners were all to be about justice. And they were, I remember there was a suggestion that what happens if they attack us physically? How do we defend ourselves? Why can't we make some petrol bombs? We decided against that. Because we said, if we have decided on a peaceful demonstration, any arms we bring to the place can be used against us. So we decided against that petrol bomb idea. That was it. And then we came out that day.
So you told the students to come out of the bus. Did you guys have any PA system or anything? How were you mobilizing the students? How were you telling them to get off the buses? Were you just yelling and screaming, or were you having any PA system?
No, we were talking to them directly, physically.
Okay.
We were talking to them physically, yeah.
Okay.
We were
So
talking to
at
them
what
physically.
point did you guys, decide to embark on a march? The students were coming off the bus, and then what?
That was how we were programmed. We bring down the students together, and then we get them to GTTI and address them and tell them how the program was going to be run. And they were going to wait for us there, and we were going to Bandung for our meetings with the vice president, and that they were not to go home. That was our plan. That was our plan. But the police intervention unit came and interrupted everything, and we never had the opportunity to carry matters in that way.
So you never spoke to the students, and you never went to Banjul?
Myself, no. We spoke to the students when we were asking them to get off the buses. That was the only address we made to them that day. Yeah.
So did you prepare a speech, or did you guys prepare a speech that you were going to read to the students?
Oh no, we don't do that. We are student leaders. We don't have to prepare speeches. We can just
so you know what you have to say. You know what you have to say, right?
We are comrades. It comes out naturally. You don't have to write those things.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah. Anyway, now moving on. So you guys were there, and before you knew it, the paramilitary came, right?
Yes, the paramilitary came. The paramilitaries, they came around 7 o'clock. So we had already been there since 5:05, 4:06. So the paramilitaries came around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And because I was leading the demonstration, when they came, they wanted to speak to me. I told them, go and speak to that man. I pointed the vice president to them because, when students make their plans, we execute that. That's what we do. I was the president of GAMSU, but it was, and I should say something else also. When the demonstration was put to the vote, now this is how we used to operate. Now, I led GAMSU as a chairperson would lead a board.
Okay.
Now the board members make decisions, and then we discuss and then put the decision to a vote. If there is a winning side, we abide by that. The decision goes that way. If there is a stalemate, then I vote to break the tie. Okay. All right. Okay. But our vote for this peaceful demonstration was unanimous. Okay. Personally, okay. I did not have to cast my vote. It was a unanimous decision. Okay. I think I should make that clear. So when I explained to them to go and speak to the vice president, they refused to go to him. They did not want to talk to him. Okay. They wanted me to stop what I was doing and speak to them. They came after me again. I think it was Momodu Sise. Yeah. He came again. I told him, go and speak to that man. He's the one responsible. As many times as he came after me, I told him to go to the vice president and speak to him. Because that is the guy we had prepared for that. That was his mandate. That was his duty. That was his responsibility at the point. I dare not speak to them. We don't do that in the student movement. Everybody does what you are asked to do. That's what we do. And even if you are a president, I know there have been some student leaders who were dictatorial and were doing things. But we come from the traditional activists. We are a group.
So they did not speak to, your vice president, and then what?
They arrested me because I refused to talk to them. They arrested me. Okay. They arrested me and arrested everybody around me. Some of them were not even members of the student executive. Okay. They just arrested everyone around me, and they packed us in a vehicle. So when they arrested me and the people around me, some other members of the student leadership also offered themselves.
Okay.
We arrested, and we were arrested, and we were all taken away to the headquarters of the paramilitary police in Kanifing.
In Kanifing, okay. So, and then what happened?
Yeah, that was it. It was tough at Kanifing, because that they were beating us, kicking us, walking on us, and as I told you, they were torturing us, doing all kinds of things. They were literally beating us. That's all.
Do you recognize any of the people who carried out these tortures and who manhandled you guys?
Unfortunately, I cannot remember any one of them.
You don't remember, okay. So when they took you guys to the paramilitary office, what happened there?
After torturing us, beating us, and doing all kinds of things for a while, then Usman Baji came there. The Secretary of State for the Interior. He came and he came and asked for us to be released so that we could go to the Vice President's office for discussion. And they had already injured the Vice President. GAMSU's Vice President had already been injured.
Okay.
In the beatings. So, okay, when we were released, they put us all in a vehicle. But the Vice President was poorly, so he was slow in moving into the vehicle. He had no place in the vehicle, so I gave him my place. I got off the vehicle and told him to get on. Then I walked with. I told the Secretary of State to look for another vehicle for me and some others. All right, and then we walked from inside the paramilitary office coming to the gate. But by the time we came to the gate, it was like helter-skelter. Pandemonium was all over the place. And there were students running across, throwing stones at paramilitary officers, and paramilitary officers shooting in the air. So at that point, I turned to the minister and told him categorically, I will not go to Banjul and leave my members here like this. All right? My priority, my duty is now to my people. I have to make sure that they are secured. So it was at that point that other members of the student leadership joined me in forming a line between the paramilitary and the students, which we did successfully, and we started talking to the students. Now, at that point, the minister had come to take us to Banjul, so that was the thing on the agenda. So we spoke to the students. We took the students we went with them up to the Westfield Junction, and I very well remember I spoke to them there. I spoke to them and convinced them to go home. That those students who were there, but at that time, more students were arriving on the scene. More students were arriving because, schools all over Paris and the moment they heard that there was a demonstration on, and they all left their classes and started coming out. They all poured out into the streets. Now, what happened let me explain what happened after they arrested us. Now, when they arrested us, students still continue gathering at GTTI. And we did leave some members of the student leadership there. So after some time, they decided they were going to march on the PIEU headquarters until we are released. Okay? So before they got there, we had already been released. And we had moved with this other group of students that were at PIEU up to Westfield Junction. And some students actually managed to go home from that point. Now, it was while we were at Westfield Junction that Babukar Jatta and other officers came there. I had always
and Babukar Jatta, for our listeners, was the chief of defense staff at the time. So he came there, and then?
Yeah, as I said, the Gambia is a very small country. We all know each other. This were guys, these people. Babukar Babukar Jata, Ibrahim Chonga. These were all people that I met on the school bus. Babukar Jata lived in my neighborhood in Bakote.
Okay.
I was going to St. Augustine's house. So it's not a matter of we are all brothers. He used to hang out with my cousins.
So when he came to Westfield, what did he say? What conversation transpired there?
He came straight to me. He came straight to me and asked me, "Okay, Omar, now what do you think we should do?" This was what he asked me. What do you think we should do? I said, withdraw the paramilitary officers, because they were the troublemakers then. Because they were the ones who disrupted the peaceful demonstration. I told him, withdraw the paramilitary officers, and they immediately withdrew them.
At what point did the people who got killed, the students that got killed, at what point were they shot? And the journalists Omar Barrow and them who were shot in front of the Red Cross building, at what point did those people get shot?
You see, after those students we spoke to at Westfield Junction had gone, while we were still standing there, we were told that the schools in Bakote, Kotu, were marching towards Serekunda, and people got scared what they were going to do when they get to the petrol station before the bridge. You know the area I'm talking about?
Yes.
There's the petrol stations. There are 2 petrol stations outside Bakote just before you cross the bridge. And there were people there. So we told one of us, Aliu Dabo, the president of the Gambia University Students Union, to go with Babukar Jata and speak to those students that it was not necessary for them to come into Sarakunda, to Westfield Junction. All right? So that was how we actually discussed with Babukar himself, and he agreed to go with Aliu Dabo. All right? Then the students that were gathering at GTTI and were informing others of our arrest were now ready to come to the police intervention unit. By then we were at Westfield Junction, right there at where you have those statues.
The youth monument.
Yes, the monument thing. So
the youth monument.
Yeah. So after this, the students had gone. Babukar Jata, Aliu Dabo, and others had already been dispatched to go to other areas and calm down pockets of student resistance or demonstrations all over the place. We were told that there was a huge crowd of students moving towards the PIEU headquarters. But within the same period, at about the same time, we saw a truckload of soldiers, apparently the state guards, coming from Bakau and going towards the PIEU offices. Then we decided that I should lead efforts there. I should go back, that we should go back to inform those students also that we had been released. Now, then we got off. We wanted to take Sankum Baji. All of them were there. Sankum Baji, Deputy IGP. They were all part of this discussion. So we decided we were going to take Sankum Baji's vehicle and go and do that. He refused to give us his vehicle because it was like having his vehicle commandeered by students. So he decided he was going to go with us, with his driver, in the vehicle. Now, when we took off, as we moved towards the crowd of students, of course, what they saw was a police vehicle. They started throwing stones at it. Okay, so we could not go straight to the front. We had to the vehicle had to be diverted, and we went in through the backside of the PIEU Police Intervention Unit headquarters. Now, as far as we know, while we were going to the front, to go and stand between the students and the police and the soldiers who had then arrived on the scene. It was while we were moving, myself, other student leaders, former DIP, Deputy Inspector General of Police, Sankum Baji. You guys can call him and ask him. I was with him. Then they started firing. In fact, it was Sankum Baji who told me and my colleagues that those are live ammunition.
Okay. So he told you those are live bullets. He could tell as a seasoned military officer, security officer, he could tell that those were live bullets.
Yes, that it was at that point that the shooting started. And it was at that point that the casualty count started.
Okay.
People have said it was at the Red Cross. Could have been, because we were inside the police intervention unit headquarters and we were coming out to the front when it started.
Yeah, which is very close, which is almost adjacent to the Red Cross building.
Exactly. Not exactly, but then within the same vicinity. So this is what I have always said. With us, we were at the police intervention unit and we were moving towards between the students and the police officers and the soldiers who had just arrived when they started shooting at the students. And
so when they started shooting, what happened? What did you do? What did you do?
We could not, because
when this
our only security then at that point was with the police officers who were around us. Okay.
Okay.
The moment they left us, we were put at gunpoint.
Okay.
Myself and the other student leaders, we were put at gunpoint, and we were made to by soldiers.
By soldiers.
Yeah.
You are listening to the FASA show on the Gambian Talents TV. I'm here. My guest is Mr. Omar Joof, the former president of the Gambian Student Union, who led the student demonstration on April 10th and 11th, April 10th, year 2000. Of course, Mr. Joof is narrating to us how the demonstration happened. They put you on gunpoint. Do you remember any of the soldiers who put you on gunpoint, sir?
No, I wouldn't remember them. I don't remember them.
Okay. So what were they saying to you when they put you on gunpoint? What were some of the things they were saying to you?
The once they started killing students, everybody started running away from that scene. Okay. It was at that point that we decided we were going to go underground. You know what I mean? Go to some place and try to direct matters from that spot.
Okay.
The first thing we did was we went underground and contacted all our members, meaning the student leadership. We contacted them and started trying to fix things from that point, from our hiding place.
Okay. And then what?
That's how it. Then the thing, our peaceful demonstration was taken from our hands, and it was changed into war.
A bloody thing. I can tell you at that point, you guys had no control. Are you aware that Babukar Jatta came to Banjul? Because we spoke to him at the Arch. I was there when Babukar Jatta came to the Arch 22. Are you aware of that?
No, because when
you guys lost control at some point, you guys, and this was after 10/11, I think. You guys had no control after that, and there were other things that happened, because even at Talinding, there were cars that get burned. The students burned cars. Took tires and burned them on the streets. So you guys had no control at that point. Do you know that at some point GAMSU lost control of this whole thing? It wasn't, as you guys expected.
Of course. We are not soldiers. We had no guns. We did not even. Traditional students would prepare petrol bombs and use them to defend themselves. We did not even bring out those things which we could have prepared and which was a suggestion on the table during our last meeting. But we did not do all that because we determined that we were going to be peaceful and that we were not going to take to the scene anything that can be used against us as having used arms. You see, so that's why when the thing got out of hand, yes, they changed our peaceful demonstration into war, literally, burning and looting. That was what they did.
Yes, yes, there was looting, there was burning down of, buildings, breaking into people's places. All of that actually did take place.
Yeah.
And it wasn't only students alone.
No, it was not only student alone, because criminal elements in that area, that's the hub of the Gambia. Westfield, that area is the hub of the Gambia. Once pandemonium breaks in that area, then it becomes um, it becomes it develops or deteriorates into something else. That is why.
So you said you guys tried to mobilize from underground. So what did you mobilize? What did you do? What did you re-strategize on?
What at that point what we were doing was like, what we were doing is like to count our members, find out who had fallen, and to try to contact others and inform each other as to where we were and what we were to do. It was at that point that my own fate was taken out of my hands. It was my colleagues. At that point, my colleagues decided that I should not go home. It was a very, very.
So was any of your colleagues, has any of your colleagues fallen? Was any of them killed? Was any member of the executive killed or injured?
No. There was none of us was shot, because we were at different locations by that time. So I told you, we had delegated our members, to go to other places and try to calm down the situation, because we were interested in a peaceful demonstration. We had sent up, like, even Babakar Jatta was with one of them. I told you,
So you were not aware when he came to Banjul, because in Banjul we went to school. I used to live in Banjul. We have people who, left Combo and came to Banjul, of course, and informed us about this demonstration. And we were all energized and wanted to come to Westfield. But at that point, the school buses were not running. A lot of the vehicles have stopped also running at the time. So transportation was really what helped us at the edge until Babukar Jatta came over there.
Yeah, After he left us at Westfield Junction, we didn't know anything about him until much later. While I was in exile, I started to hear him talking. Yeah, that was all.
Yes, so he came to Banjul and he was talking to the students to go back. And people were arrested. Like I said, my colleagues were arrested. A friend of mine was arrested. They were taken in Banjul. They came to St. Augustine's. They came to the schools. They came there, and Usman Sabali, of course, was manhandled. People ran away. The principal dispersed us, and that was how we all went to the edge, trying to come back, because the principal knew about it. He dispersed us, and that's how we decided to come, to the I-22, where Babukar Jatta met us. Now, eventually, the paramilitary came, and we all ran away. Some people were caught. They put them in their trucks, beat them up, and of course took them to the police headquarters in Banjul. That's where they kept some of them inside a hall. And we were looking for some of our colleagues for a whole day or two. So your people told you, coming back to maybe you didn't know about that. I thought I should add that part. There you say you didn't know anything about what happened in Banjul.
No, we had, but by that time things had, because I have heard about what happened in Banjul over the years. Of course, I have had meetings with. We did get together the student union in Dakar while I was in Senegal, Dakar in exile, and we had a lot of catching up to do. We told each other our experiences, people who were at different locations and so on. And that's how I came to know about things that happened at St. Augustine's High School and so on, what they did to, unfortunately, to Mr. Sabali and others. I have heard about all these things you've just said. But it was not like any of us in the student leadership were on the scene then, because when we came out of detention, we were supposed to go to Banjul, and I decided that we would not go to Banjul and leave those students in that scenario with the police, with the PIEU running helter skelter.
But sir, if I would ask you, would one be correct to say that like you sacrifice the students, you let them out, they get shot, they get killed, they get injured, and I mean you and your executive all escape, none of you get hurt or was killed. What would be your reaction to folk who would think that you actually sacrifice the students?
No, that's there are certain things that are beyond explanation because most of us, I mean, the police officers themselves thought that they had killed all of us because, as I explained to you, we were the ones standing between them and the students throughout the morning, throughout that day. It's just mysterious. It's just mysterious that none of us got shot, none of us got killed. Most of us, our parents, went to look for us at mortuaries because it's just by imagination. Anybody who knew what happened that day just cannot believe that none of us got shot or killed because we were the ones.
But why you started well by leading the students by not going to Banjul and leaving them, but then don't you think you betrayed them at some point when you decided you had to leave? At what time during the day did you leave the scene?
We were with the students up to the time the mayhem. I mean, like the mayhem happened. Everything just collapsed. Like there was a big boom, like a big explosion, and everybody was torn apart. That was it. It was not that we left them there and went away like that. No. At that point, when that explosion happened at Westfield at police at PIEU headquarters, everyone started moving away from that explosion. And it was then that we were put at gunpoint. We could have all been killed in the shooting, one. We could have all been killed when we were put at gunpoint. Because we were still there when we were put at gunpoint. So I don't believe that we sacrificed them. None of us was thinking along those lines at that point because none of us was, I could not remember any of us having been scared up to that point, even when the killings had started.
How did you escape the gunpoint though? How did you escape the gunpoint?
Because we were moving. I told you. We were at Westfield Junction. We dispatched our members to various locations, and we were moving from the monument to in front of the police.
Coming back to the police headquarters. Okay.
Exactly. And we were going, as we did throughout the morning, to stand between the students and the soldiers and speak to the students like, we are here, let everyone go home, and this is what we are doing. That's exactly what we were doing. We were moving to that point, and we were very close to that point when the explosion started.
Oh, okay. So you said your executive told you it wasn't safe for you to go home. At what point did you leave the scene? I asked you that question again.
That was around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Around 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
All through.
It was after that explosion that we remember we heard about Omar Barrow's demise and so on, and so on. Yeah.
Yes. So where did you go? You said you were told not to go home. Where did you go?
No, as I told you, we went on the ground. And we stayed on the ground, and we sent feelers overnight. We sent feelers to my house, and it was realized that bad people close to the regime were visiting my home. Then overnight, it was decided that I should leave the country.
Where did you go? You said you went on the ground, but I asked, where did you go? Do you mind sharing where you went hiding?
I was somewhere in the neighborhood. I am from Serakunda. I'm from Bakote, so, and I have family and friends all over the place. And most of the time in issues like that, I was with friends, colleagues. student leaders, other student
So
leaders,
drinking your
basically.
attire and talking about it and having fun. How was that day for you?
No, no,
How
no,
was the
no.
day? How
I
was
think
the feeling after you heard? I
I
mean, did you guys hear the death of the Omar Barrows, the other students, and the ones that get injured? And how was the feeling like for you and your
it was,
executive?
it depends on, some people were frustrated, some people were angry, there was anguish. It almost, it almost started an infight right away there, but we put that under control, you know, because some people are opportunistic. They can try to make use of any situation, but we put that under control.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, and then we kept on very late at night.
How did you feel personally? How did you feel?
I was, up to that point, I can assure you, I was very angry. I was very angry, and I was disappointed. I was frustrated because of the immaturity, the lack of the lack of understanding on the side of the security, the absolute misunderstanding about peaceful demonstration, and their their absolute lack of understanding on the side of the students to fight for justice. That was a point of frustration for me, and I was very angry at the shootings because they were not necessary. We were there with all of them, and we were at the forefront trying to calm down the situation so that we could move on to the next stage on our agenda.
Okay.
So how did this shooting start? How did it come? And it was just so unnecessary.
So you left, I mean, you did not spend the night at your house. What happened to your family? You were at the time, were you married? Do you have kids? Did you have kids?
Oh yeah, I had been married before. I already had a daughter, but I was married. My wife was 8 months pregnant at the time.
Mm.
It
With
was
your
it
first
was
child?
no, my second child.
Second child, okay.
Um, it was it was it was. I don't talk about what it brought about, personally. I rather discuss the issues that
Okay.
confronted the students generally, because
Hmm.
when I opted to be leader, I accepted to be leader, I accepted to put everything online. And yeah, so I, I, have, I don't have to, I mean, like, regret anything that I personally went through.
So you
Or,
left
and
Gambia and went to Senegal and left your family. Did you go with them or did you leave your family behind?
no, my family never left, because when I initially left the Gambia, I did not leave with the intention of not returning,
Okay.
because what we wanted was to allow the scene to calm down, the situation to calm down, and then we come back and continue the struggle. That's what we do, you know. But I mean, like, the security situation started worsening, either for good or bad. When I left the country, everybody's focus and all the machinery for the blame game, all all started concentrating on me. Everybody started blaming me for everything, which I think was a good thing for my colleagues, because that was initially when I disappeared. They didn't know where I was, so it became like, is he dead or is he alive? So they were they were also they were stopped in their track as to whatever to do to anybody else, because where is Omar? What has happened to Omar? Has he been killed, or is he dead, or is he in their custody? You know, because I have had even, I mean, like, suggestions of protective custody sent to me to other students, but we turned all those things down. Um, so it was a positive thing for everybody else because it stopped them in their
So we
tracks.
had the news, we saw things on the news, and that's when I knew about your name. Like I said, I was a student at St. Augustine's in 10th grade at the time. We heard about your name and everything else, and I mean, see you on the newspapers and stuff. When was the first time you spoke out publicly? Or you spoke about this, or people knew you were about that you left the country and you were in Senegal? After
Yeah,
how long did you speak?
it was at some point it was like after a couple of weeks. After a couple of weeks, everybody became frustrated about my whereabouts. They started asking about my whereabouts, and the other members of the students started asking for me and started insisting that they should produce me or they would go out again. You know, by that point, I was already with Rado in Senegal.
How did
Right,
you leave
and
for Senegal? What route did you take to Senegal?
I
What was
took a
your
boat.
escape?
I'm Serer. I
Huh?
took a boat. I am Serer. I am Serer. I took a boat.
You took a boat to Senegal
Yeah,
through
yeah,
Banjul Bara,
through Kololi.
through Kololi. Okay, to where?
Yeah. From Kololi to around Bara and then off from that end.
Oh, Dara where? Dara Jolof?
No, I walked through. Once I got to the other side, to the north bank, it was all plain sailing for me because I camouflaged myself. I cut off my hair. I didn't have hair, and I dressed up it like a Marabu, and then I was across the border very easily.
So you acted some drama, some real drama, right?
Well, it works sometimes, yes.
So I mean, I just want to know though, like, okay, you cut a boat from Banjul to Bara, right?
Yeah, not
Okay, you cut
Banjul
a
to
boat
Bara, but
from Kololi
around Manjai Kunda Kololi, around that area. Yeah,
to Bara. I mean,
yeah.
was there a boat that goes there to Bara, or was this a private boat you hired?
It was a private one.
And
I
it was
told you
only you. It was
I
only,
told you I am Serer.
so it was only you in the boat, right?
No, I mean like the fishermen who use the boat were
Oh, okay. So
they
you went
had
with
it.
the fishermen, okay, and you got to Bara, and I mean, you acted some drama and dressed up like a marabou. Did you have any
Yeah,
encounter with any security?
absolutely nobody. I can assure you I saw only one NIA member whose name I would not mention. Who I know his family, I know him personally, but he just looked the other way.
He knew you. You knew him, and he knew you.
Of course,
Oh, okay.
he
So,
just looked the other way.
okay, that was in Bara, right?
Yeah.
So you caught the regular public transport and off to Amdalai, Karang.
Hmm. By then, Rado was there. They were on the other side waiting for me, and then that was it.
Oh, okay. How was life in Senegal? You went to Dakar, I mean Dakar, right?
Yeah, I went to
Okay.
Dakar. It was interesting. It was interesting. That was the first time I ever became involved in the lives of refugees, and it was quite an experience. There were so many Sierra Leoneans and Liberians in Dakar then, and most of them were centered around Rado for their papers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
There was also they had also started um, a growing Gambian refugee community in Dakar at the time. I found most of them. I made contacts with them and started living together with them as a refugee. Um, it was quite interesting, and then we once I got settled at Rado, we I started making contributions to radio programs in the Gambia at Radio 1 FM in particular, because they had arranged for a student program there, which was being run by some of my colleagues. So I started participating in on that radio, and so it was a shock that when Radio One was burned, because we were still doing those programs, and I think Radio One FM was burned on a Wednesday night. We normally had that program on Thursday, so I don't know. Then things started to unfold like that. Um, and
So did they make any attempts? Have you ever been whilst you were in Dakar? Have you ever heard of any attempts of them trying to come for you while you were in Dakar?
yeah, there was a series. Initially, they started to use individuals. I know, I know, I know the late what's the name? It's a human rights leader. He passed away not long ago. What's his name?
From where?
From the Gambia. He passed by. He came to me, and he tried to convince me to go back to the Gambia, but I said no, because whenever such people came to me, when they left, I would make contacts with people on the ground, and they would give me updates on the scenario, and then we would decide that it was not time, it was not right time for me to return to the country, and then I remember the Emmanuel Joof also came there because he had contacts through Rado. He either came there or I spoke to him on the phone. That was one of the reasons why I spoke to Emmanuel, was because the students were insisting on my being identified, or they would go out. So I spoke to Emmanuel through the auspices of Rado, and Emmanuel was one of those who made it known to the rest of the student population that I was safe and I was in Dakar.
So did you was any of the students aware of your departure to Dakar?
When I was sleeping when we eventually dispersed at night, because at some point at night we decided to disperse. We decided it was not safe for all of us to be together like that. So we dispersed and we all went our different ways. Yeah. From that point, I did not have contact with them again until when I started contacting them from Dakar.
Oh, I see. Okay. So not long ago, Mbai Saidi wrote something and referenced you that Yaya Jammeh had invited them to the State House and, of course, made some threats similar to what the current Vice President, Lawyer Dabo, did. Were you aware of that meeting?
Yeah, it's like this. After I left the Gambia, the thing, they started to politicize the thing. They started saying that it was Omar who did this. It was Omar who led you into this, because Omar was a member of the United Democratic Party. So they took those students into offices and did everything they could to convince them that I was the one who misled them into the demonstration. So those student leaders knew that I did not even vote for it, because the decision was unanimous, and I contributed my quota just like any one of them. So they did all that thing. Those students had worked with me for years, and some of them also supported other political parties. But when we get together as students, we are students only.
So they kind of dissolved your executive and came up with a new executive for GAMSU.
At that point, they were trying to convince them to disgrace me, to expel me from the executive, and choose a new leader. Yeah, and choose a new leader. The students insisted that they did not elect me. I was elected by the general body. So the student leadership insisted that they could not sack me, they could not dismiss me because I was elected by the general body. So that was it. But they did everything they could, call them aside, take them to offices, made promises to them, gave them all kinds of things, tried to convince them as much as possible as a way of trying
it
to
means this tactic have been in the system for a minute, because a couple of years ago when Ibrahim Silla, the chairperson of the National Youth Council, decided that enough was enough after the Solo Sandeng incident and asked people to come out to the streets. I mean, they actually did the same thing and had National Youth Council disown Ibrahim Silla. They publicly had to write a press release condemning Ibrahim's action and disowning him, and dissociated themselves away from him. So they tried that tactic with you and the student union at the time, and it didn't work, right?
Of course, they did that. They tried to politicize it. They tried to blame my personal politics for it, and that way me. I can tell you this. When I had people saying that, the teachers would change, were disgruntled politicians, they were motivated by political reasons. Yeah, it hit hard at me because I know right away that's what was being said about me.
So was it true that you were part of the UDP at the time? You said they said you were a member of UDP. Was it true that you were a member of UDP at the time?
Of course, I was a supporter, but every other adult in the student executive was also a supporter of some party. There were DOI supporters, there were APRC supporters. In fact, the majority were APRC supporters. But that never materialized into anything. That never meant anything.
Oh, so that didn't had any influence on any of the decisions at official level?
Absolutely not, because it was well later, during 2016, very recently, that I knew that myself and the vice president were both supporters of the United Democratic Party at the time. But as student leaders, we did not even know that. Because when students get together, student politics, I was in party politics, and I left party politics and went into studying student politics. The dynamics are completely different. I can assure you that. They are not the same. You see, the type of personality politics you can have in party politics in the Gambia, you can't have that in student politics, because every student is an empowered individual. Every student is an empowered individual. When students get together, everybody speaks his mind. It doesn't matter whether you have friends or brothers or sisters or whatever. It's just student politics. That's the nature of it. It's very dynamic. So anybody who tells you that these students are motivated by politics, no. Students, every generation of student leaders look down on the day's politics. They think their politicians are dumb.
That's very right. I mean, students, you think, you are untouchable and politicians are dumb, and yes, you have all the powers as students. That is, very right. I had the feeling. But yes, so they tried to convince your colleagues, and your colleagues didn't accept. And then what?
They didn't accept that. Okay, then I had a special 2-year. My mandate was for 2 years. This was a special mandate. It's only that executive that was given that mandate because the GAMSU Congress was so impressed by the program we put before them. So they gave us a 2-year mandate. So my 2-year mandate ran up to the end. At some point, most of my colleagues in the executive came to Dakar, and we finalized together. We had series of meetings, a couple of days for a whole weekend, and we discussed this and decided on how to run the rest of our term in office, and made arrangements for the next Congress and so on and so forth. Yeah, but
the next Congress. So you guys serve your full term. You were never sacked, and you guys never quit. You served your full term, and then a Congress took place.
Can you imagine? I served my full time with the full opposition of Yahya Jammeh and his 2 years.
Okay. So, but how was the new executive neutralized? Because NAPSA was formed, and it came as high school students, head boys and head girls of high school students are the ones that they invited to the NIC of 2000. 2000, they invited them to Basse. Baba Job gave them these coasters from Kairaba. They came up with this thing that, okay, it is the student head boys who actually thought of this great idea. After they were invited, they came up with this great idea to form an organization to represent the interests of the high school students. How did you know about NAPSA, if you knew about it?
Yeah, I knew about NAPSA through the media, because I was already outside, and my contact with the rest of my colleagues in the Gambia was through the internet and so on and so forth. And I very well remember at the time I told the authorities, I told them that it was not their relationship with NAPSA was never going to last, because it's the nature of Gambian students. They don't last with any government. They don't. I mean, like, I think what the Jawara government did to them was the best thing. Leave us to do our own things in our own ways. If you can support us, support us. If you cannot, leave us alone. I think that's what every other government should do, because that is very important. It enables these young people to develop their leadership skills, on very fertile grounds. Yes, it helps them. It helps them to become better leaders. It exposes them and helps them to develop their leadership skills. So it's better to leave them alone. Yeah, it's better to leave them alone. And be it the student activists, like union workers activists, whenever I hear that people are being motivated by political reasons, it's just a lame excuse. It's a lame excuse to deal with the issues. It's a lame excuse, and it's a blame game. It's a blame game, and it doesn't solve anything. You see.
I will leave the NAPSA issue to another discussion, because we've been on air for 2 hours. I want to come to the comparison. You already started touching on it. Demonstrations, of course, since after April 10, it was like a taboo in Gambia after April 10. It got the entire Gambian community to be scared that Yaya Jammeh and his government doesn't play. Students went out and were killed. Who else will be spared? As a result, Gambians lived with it for 22 years and couldn't do anything. No matter how much it hurt, no matter how inconvenient it was, no matter how unconducive the environment was, they sucked it in and dealt with it all through. So, I mean, just trying to think. 2016 came, change of government, and there's a whole twist. Hardly does a week or two pass and we don't hear a new demonstration. Like I said, from all sectors. Yeah, the drivers have demonstrated. I mean, the drivers, not even one time. The, what do you call it? The hotel workers have demonstrated. The doctors have demonstrated. Young people on few occasions have demonstrated. The Occupy Westfield, I mean, the other one, the latest one that they did, Killer A's and them did. I mean, and all the other ones. Of course, the bakers did their part. Social Security. The school teachers is the most recent one. And today, like I said, the people from Pipeline actually went out to demonstrate peacefully, because for 3 years, they didn't have more than 3 hours of stable water supply. How do you feel seeing something you championed coming back to life?
Certainly, I feel vindicated, and I think some people, some of those who criticize me, they take it for granted that I would always support a demonstration. I don't, because a demonstration is like it's a manifestation. It's a process. you just don't jump and demonstrate like that. You have to identify the issues. You have to put up the issues. You have to make representation. You have to keep dialogue until when dialogue is exhausted. Demonstration is always restated. It is always the last resort. It is always the last resort. That is very important. But for people to be demonstrating and be allowed to demonstrate, that is very good for the Gambia's democracy. Look, politicians build systems around them, and those systems get to a point, you see, parasites, opportunists, you know, they all become so involved in the networks, so much so that the connections, the contacts between the people and the politicians are distorted and interrupted and are no more effective. But when the people get up and manifest their grievances, then you have the opportunity to hear directly from the people. And it helps you to make the right decision. Here in Canada, here in Nova Scotia, in Halifax, I am part of the Workers' Federation. I almost go out sometimes every month to manifest. It is not always, when you say demonstration, it is not always violent. It is very few of them that turn into violence. The demonstration.
Let me ask you this: do you regret April 10th?
I regret the killings, but I know we did it because we don't want that kind of thing to happen in the Gambia again.
Besides those killings, did you accomplish your result? Was any justice, achieved? For the girl Mane and of course Barry the guy.
This is what justice denied is. Justice denied. There has not been justice for any of these people.
Until
but we believe eventually.
Okay, until this day, there has not been any justice.
Yeah, but we believe that there would eventually, one fine day, there will be justice because it's going to be.
Have you celebrated April 10 when it happens every year? What do you do? The first year, let me start with the first year. You were in Dakar still, right? How long were you in Dakar for?
2 years.
2 years. The first year, April 10th. How was that feeling like? And how did you celebrate?
That's a very personal question. And I know if you ask some of my friends, they will tell you, yes, this is how he celebrates it. I fast and I pray a lot.
You starve yourself?
I fast. I don't mean I starve myself. I fast and I pray a lot for my colleagues, for everything, and for the cause of justice, for everybody.
Only the first year or every year? That first year, what did you feel though?
The first year was interesting because there was a commemoration of April 10, 11 in 2001, and it was the commemoration that brought again our comrade and friend Alaji Nyabali to the forefront, and eventually he became part of the GAMSU leadership, and so on and so forth. Yes, the first one was commemorated, but as I told you, I always write and publicize and make presentations. The first one actually, I was invited by private radio stations in Senegal. I think it was WALF. Yeah, Aliuntin and the others made arrangements for me to. They exposed me, gave me that kind of outlet in terms of publicity, and I made presentations to those private radio stations, and I wrote on the internet and so on and so forth every year. My stay in Senegal was very good in that way because it exposed April 10th, 11 to a very large extent among Senegalese. They get to know more about it because Rado was making the contact, and I was speaking to those radio stations.
Nice. Have you been to Gambia since April 10, 2000?
Since I left my house 4 a.m. on April 10th, 2000, I have not yet stepped home.
Wow.
But I think as the saying goes, I think the long day is finally coming to an end.
When are you going
Hopefully,
to Gambia? You mentioned that earlier that you want to go to the TRRC and stuff. When are you
yes.
gonna go?
Eventually, I'll go home and like me and you, our fathers. Before we do things, we must put some roots and
Mm-hmm.
leaves and water and find out things.
Mm-hmm.
And we look at the elements and stuff like that, and we do what the science tells us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, hopefully this year,
Mm-hmm.
within the next 11, 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
I hope to,
You hope to go
inshallah,
to
by the
Gambia.
grace of God, I hope to go to the Gambia, yes. Because
Nice.
it's become
Um,
a matter of necessity. Many people have died in my family. I've lost um, all my father's sons older than me have passed away.
wow.
The family has been decimated. I've lost two of my brothers. I have lost. It's a big family, and so many people have passed away, and it's incredible. It's unbelievable, and every day I call home, they're telling me come home, come home. Even my cousins, the gens, who somehow they are happy that I was not there because they were standing in my shadows all the time. Smakali.
Mhm. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Nice.
Even them, they are telling me to go home. My older cousin Dauda Jeng, I was speaking to him the other day. He was almost crying with his wife. Why are you not coming home? Why can't you come home? We want you to come home. We want you to come home. And every day they're telling me the community, we need you. We want you to come home. We want you to come home. I think it's getting to that point where when everybody agrees that it is time for me to go home, yes, we will go home. And
So
not the
what do you
time
think
to.
of the new government's approach towards demonstration? In your view, are they doing okay? Are
My
you
worry
seeing
about the
are you seeing
my
any
worry,
resemblance?
yeah, my worry about the new government is the elements of the dictatorship that are still left, you know, within the government. Because I am I am convinced before I am convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that those people all they have been schooled in is a dictatorship's way of doing things. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how those people uh, could have changed their mentalities, their skills in operating in a that would enable them to operate in a purely democratic environment as we are supposed to have now in the Gambia. So I worry a lot about those people. And I worry about those people who castigate public demonstrations. Public demonstrations are public manifestations. That's where you put out your grievances and help your leaders to see them. That is the purpose. It's not it's not for war. It's not it's not for confrontation. It's not for a fight. If our politicians know how useful demonstrations are, they will make the best use of it. Because the more public demonstrations you have, peaceful demonstrations, the
Mm-hmm.
more cohesion you will have in that community. I'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you this. I was stuck the first week of my stay in Dakar. I went to the area they call Ville, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a demonstration there.
Mm-hmm.
And these demonstrators were surrounded by the gendarmerie. But
Mm-hmm.
instead, the gendarmerie were protecting the
Protecting the
demonstrators.
demonstrators. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yes, they were protecting the people
As it
demonstrating.
happens in the US, uh-huh, and the West. Yep,
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
demonstration is. Mhm.
So,
You're
so
supposed to
Gambian,
provide security to provide, to the demonstrators, not the other way around.
exactly, not the other way around. And we and the paramilitary, the soldiers, we are all brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
We are not enemies. We are not enemies, but we are all part of this dynamic society and we all have roles to play. And this is demonstrating and showing out our grievances is a duty, in fact.
Nice.
To show your grievances is a duty, and it helps government in governance, because you cannot you cannot you cannot you cannot successfully implement your mandate in a disconnect. You cannot. You have to know what the people's feelings are. You have to know what the people's wishes and aspirations are. You cannot live in a, like in a cocoon. You cannot be disconnected with the people and be able to do for them what they want you to do for them. You cannot. And the purpose of politicians is to articulate and conceptualize, and put into practice the wishes and aspirations of the people. As long as as long as the people don't tell you these things, you won't know them. The normal political parties have their roles to play, but the normal political parties, we have seen what happens is everybody is beaten into order, so that the internal democracy that is supposed to be within the political parties are no more there, because everybody is expected to follow the leaders. The idea and the ideals of constructive criticism are not encouraged in our society, and these are must-have. We must have them if our democracy is to flourish. We must have them. So I think what the Barrow government needs to do is they need to understand that once you lift the lid off oppressed people, then they feel what the new environment of freedom helps them bring out their feelings, their aspirations. So it's the result of what we have all done. Liberation. Liberation brings freedom, and freedom brings expression of wishes and aspirations. So it's just so contradictory when people start to criticize these people that are demonstrating. It's the freedom. It's the new.
In your view, it's not fair.
What can you say it again?
In your view, it is not fair to criticize people that are demonstrating.
Well, you can criticize them. It's good to criticize everybody. We all have rights to criticize people, but condemning the idea of demonstration. You can criticize somebody's the reasons for someone's demonstration without condemning, without trying to take away from that person.
That's right.
Our rights to demonstrate. You see my point? And that's what sometimes some of us do. We should respect each people's right to demonstrate. We can criticize them, yes. And when we criticize them, we can criticize their reasons for demonstrating. But we should defend each other's rights to demonstrate. We should not take away from people their rights to demonstrate. And the government should understand that. The government should understand that. You see, they are the government of those who are demonstrating and those they are demonstrating against. So they need to stand above the fray. They need to government. That's why I was very saddened by what happened between Teachers for Change and lawyer Usainu Dabo. We have tremendous respect for lawyer Dabo. He's a very capable leader. We are fond of him. We love him. But it's here. Bullying is an offense at the workplace. So you don't bully workers. It's an offense. Because.
So you consider his action bullying when he said when he gave them an ultimatum that if they don't return to work by the 28th, they were going to be sacked. You take that as bullying.
It's part of my everyday work here as a workers unionist. Yes, that's bullying. I know because I have studied that.
Okay.
I have a diploma in union organization and mobilization. That is bullying. That is bullying. It's typical bullying. Because they have a right to demonstrate. All right. All you have to do, and the other thing is about the Gambia, they do not have the mechanisms for workers and people to channel their frustrations to. See, when these teachers demonstrated, when they decided to go on strike, even before they go on strike, there should have been a mechanism for dialogue. You see,
They
so
said
that
they have
while
existed dialogue. They just didn't get up and demonstrated. They dialogue to
yeah,
the last that.
yeah, okay, but the government should have set up another mechanism because when you go up to a point where the parties involved in the dialogue have reached a point where they totally disagree, then here what we do is the government asks, appoints a magistrate
Mm-hmm.
to kind of mediate between them.
Mm-hmm.
That is to go and talk to these ones. They give them their point. He goes to this part of the employer, talk to them, and they give them their point. If that also fails, then the case, the government suggests to take the case to a magistrate for arbitration or a judge for arbitration. Then the judge decides on the issue, and whatever the judge decides becomes binding on both parties.
You are very right. I was just listening to the radio the other day in Seattle, where I live, where you have
Yeah,
a community, a neighborhood. Actually, some of the neighbors wanted a bike path, the others did not want a bike path on there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
of course, there was a push and pull between these two communities. And yes, eventually the city government has to hire an intermediator, a mediator who was paid over $14,000 just to
yeah.
mediate between these two parties.
It's part of keeping the peace. It's part
Mhm.
of keeping the peace. They have to do that. Government should take up its responsibilities seriously. We are a free people. With free people, you make sure that their freedom is exercised, is channeled through mechanisms, and the peace is maintained. And the need for dialogue is there. It's their duty. They have to do that. And yes, as you rightly said, the two parties, the employer and the teachers, the workers, they discussed, and they could not come to agreement. But there should be another step up
Mhm.
ahead of that. There should be a professional or a judge or a lawyer that
Who
mediates
will
somebody
decide?
that
Mhm.
mediate between them. And
Mhm.
if that mediation fails, they
Mhm.
take the case to court. That's
Of
how
course.
things are done in yeah. That's how things are done.
So,
Take
with
them
your
to court.
experience over the years, do you have any plans to go back to Gambia and share some of these things? Because apparently, a lot of Gambians are getting into demonstration that don't even know. For example, the other day when social security workers were demonstrating, some of them actually, some didn't want to be part of it, but they stood out and said nobody was going to go in the building. For example, I mean, you have your right to demonstrate, but if somebody else doesn't want to demonstrate, do you have to force that person to be part of demonstration? So there are several things that people do while demonstrating under the pretext of it's their right, but do they actually know what they're doing? So in that situation, do you have any hopes, plans, wishes to go back to Gambia and share some of these things that you are just sharing with me here or us today?
Yes, when I go home, whenever I go to the Gambia, I'll try to share my what I have learned.
Hmm.
Because as we said, I went to school in the Gambia, and I was educated with taxpayers' money. Uh, I still need to give back to the people of the Gambia. I had scholarships. You know, I went to the sixth form scholarship. I went to the college scholarship. I went to university scholarship. Everything. Um, and at one point, when I was going to the university, I had both my salary. I mean, like, I had both my salary, and I still had, um, scholarship,
Hmm.
to cover for my tuition and everything. So
Hmm.
Gambian taxpayers have done a lot for us. Yes, I intend to go home and share whatever I have garnered in terms of education and experience with the generality of the Gambian public. And my experience is always available to those who want to demonstrate. They can always ask me what are the things we should do. You see,
Yeah.
if those, for example, those are the social security and Housing Finance Corporation. The first stage is when you determine to strike, you don't just jump up and strike. Those of you who are supposed to go on the strike must vote. You must vote on it. And whatever the majority decides, the others should let that be. They should allow that to stand because that is what democracy is about.
The process starts with trying to engage each other and knowing how many people are in for it and how many are against it, and then gauge it from there.
Exactly. That's the first stage of the mobilization. You have to talk to your membership. You have to talk to your membership and then allow them to take the vote. The leaders would stand by and allow the membership to take the vote. If the majority decides to go ahead with the strike, then it is you all go on strike. I mean, like, it is not in your interest for some to go on strike while others are not on strike. You undermine each other. It doesn't work that way. If the majority decides that it's going to be a strike, let it be a strike. That's how democracy functions. You know.
Thank you.
Don't listen to what other people outside tell you. No. After that, when you start this process, you must put in place your demands, put them in writing, and be respectfully put them to your employer. Give them to your employer. Give your employer time to look at your demands or whatever they are, and be prepared to engage your employer in dialogue.
Dialogue as much as you can.
It's very it's very important. It's very important.
I think we need to have. You just inspired me, sir. I think we need to have another discussion where we will talk about how to demonstrate. I think this is very important. I will definitely love to have you back to talk about how to demonstrate, because it's very important to break it down. We were talking about the April 10 and 11. We've been on air for almost 2 hours, 30 minutes, and it will be time, yes, to wrap up the show. But I definitely will love to have you back. I mean, we'll talk about that behind the scenes to actually come back and just talk about demonstration. Because the rate at which people are demonstrating is too much. My brothers and sisters, our uncles and fathers in Badibu demonstrated against the Barrow Youth Movement. Hey, what are we talking about here? Yes. What are we talking about? They demonstrated against the Barrow Youth Movement. We have, everybody is demonstrating now. So
I know, and I hope the Jarankas are not doing it too. And the people
don't be surprised, man. Now everybody gets up to demonstrate. It's their right. It's democracy, right? Anyway, your final word. I am very serious about having you to just discuss demonstration and how to demonstrate. I mean, because you've given some very good insight. Mm-hmm.
You're welcome.
Your last and final words.
I mean, this is like this is a new. It's like at the beginning of a new era in the Gambia, and some of us were very passionate about change. And it's like this is what we say: when you are aiming for anything, you aim for the highest and the best, the excellent, the magnificent. But it's not always going to be as good as you want it to be. So we should be persistent in our demands for progressive change. We should be rationally consistent in demanding for change, but we should also be taking into cognizance the limitations and especially the experiences and the know-how, the revolutionary know-how of the leaders we have in place, and try to convince them rather than confront them. It is good to know that these leaders, they're not perfect people. They're not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. I know you're not perfect. None of us is perfect. But if we keep on talking and try to convince each other, it's better that way. My experience with demonstrations, with that very horrible experience on April 10th, 11th, what it has taught me is you can never put too much effort in trying to understand the other side and in trying to convince them in through dialogue. Um, that's one thing I would like to urge Gambians to do, to engage each other maximally and try to convince each other, because that is the way democratic societies work. That is how democracy itself works. You have to convince each other. We have to be open to discussions, and we when we get engaged in discussions, when we get engaged in dialogue, we should be prepared to convince each other. We should not go into dialogue with ironclad ideas or ironclad positions that we are never prepared to vacate a particular position. We should go to a discussion, we go to the table, we go to negotiations with intent to give and take for the better and more good of every one of us, for the betterment of our common good. That's just what I have to say to them. And I love my people. I love this country, and I'm very proud of them. Once again, I must thank every Gambian who has been giving us such great magnificent support for more than 22 years. I have I have I owe you all, especially the media houses um, that have stood with us all along, and have extended great solidarity to everyone, to us in this long journey, which at some point some people thought it was never going to come to an end, but to see with persistence, with faith, with goodwill, with positivity, we will always come to the right conclusion. So
Thank you.
let's keep the struggle. Let's keep the struggle, and let's
Thank you
keep
very much.
positive.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Mr. Omar Joof. That is Mr. Omar Joof. That was Mr. Omar Joof, the former president of the Gambia Student Union, the body that led in the April 10th and 11th student demonstration in the Gambia that led to the loss of lives and, of course, handicap by some of the other students and non-students for that matter. That, of course, brought about a complete U-turn in the Gambia. Nobody demonstrated after April 10 and 11. Yes, only small little ones is what you hear here and there, but nothing like what we are seeing now until the regime change took place. April 10 and 11 is something that is never going to be forgotten by Gambians. It is good to hear this story from the people who actually put it together, and we thank Mr. Joof for granting us this interview. You can hear his insight, you can hear his expertise, you can hear professionalism in what he said and how they did things at GAMSU at the time. They ran the institution like a board would run any institution, and that was a good thing. We've had all the things that they did. I mean, come that day, how they stood by the students. They came out to represent the interests of two students, a male and a female, one of whom was killed, the other one was raped, and till this day, nothing came out of it. But he hopes that eventually justice will take place, as he plans to go to the Gambia and be on the TRRC to actually address some of these things. You are watching FASA with Pa Usman Joof on the Gambian Talents TV. We apologize for the late start of the program and the inconveniences that happened, the technical difficulties that we had earlier. Those of you that were watching us on YouTube, thank you very much. Those of you that watch us on Facebook, thank you very much. If you have never followed us or you would like to follow us, Gambian Talents Promotion is our Facebook page. Our YouTube channel is Gambian Talents. Our Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat accounts are Gambian Talents Promotion. Thank you all for listening. Until we come your way next time. Tomorrow we have an interesting interview with Frederick Tendeng, who will be talking to us about the Gambia oil deal and some other issues that are of interest. We also have our Cisse, who will be talking to us about the Kodole campaign, asking the First Lady about the $33 million that went missing by the First Lady Foundation. We will also be having interviews with other dynamic people. There is a press conference that will be taking place about a Gambian wrestler and between a Gambian wrestler and a Senegalese wrestler. Thank you all very much for watching and for listening to the FASA with Omar Joof. This is Gambian Talents TV. Until we come your way next time. Thank you to Mr. Joof. Thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you.